I'm Laura, and I work for the Vermont Council on Rural Development. And we are a nonprofit, nonpartisan convener of public process, and we work throughout the state of Vermont. We help hold conversations, but we don't have any of the answers. You all hold the answers, and we're going to have a conversation today around what you all want to see for your future in your communities. So the team, I want to quickly say who's here with me from VCRD. We have Nick and Danny from the VCRD team helping out today. We also have a handful of folks from FEMA who are community assistants, and I'll let Mark finish his bite of pizza and then introduce himself.
Okay.
Good timing.
So my name is Mark Leese, and I work for FEMA in the Intergovernmental Recovery Coordination Group in Community Assistance. I'm a community planner, also an architect, though early on, and I do this for a living these days since about 3 years ago, and I just go to different disasters and help communities. I kind of specialize in small communities, downtown redevelopment, and revitalization of areas, but now I have a specialty in recovery planning. So the thing that happened late in life. Anyway, thanks for having us here. And we have with us Kelly Ayala over here, whom I think a lot of you know. She's a local hire, and she's my team member on this. And we also have a couple other folks in the back up here. James Segerson, and he actually resides in New Hampshire, but he's attached to our group right now, and he's my boss. And then next to him, to the right, is Bill Schmidt, and he's like a James boss in training at this point. And so they're just observing, because they don't get to see this in action very often, so they're here tonight to observe and get to know you folks better. So that's it.
Thank you. And they will be helping take notes this evening, as well as we are recording everything digitally as well, so that all of the ideas will be collected and synthesized. And I'll get into kind of where we go from here, but first I want to ground us in where Weston is today. You all have shown up, seen the invitation to come and share your reflections and your ideas, and it's really an opportunity to come together to speak to each other. So if we had our best wishes fulfilled, we would be in a semicircle and you all would be looking at each other. So I do want to encourage you, when you are speaking, to speak to each other as a community, because this is the group that will really pull up ideas and move things forward with the support of these other entities as well. But so many Vermont towns were built on rivers, right? That was the power, that was where settlements happened. And things are changing, and you know that firsthand from 18 months ago now. The summer of 2023 flooded your community. But prior to that, VCRD was asked to help facilitate from the Planning Commission a conversation around climate planning, climate adaptation. So that was in 2022. And we weren't able to take on that work in early 2023, and then obviously in the summer, July of 2023, the flooding hit, and a lot of the attention turned to immediate needs, recovery, rebuilding from that event. And so that is where you have been. And in that process, in the last 18 months, a lot has been happening. And you have a flood resiliency committee that has been stood up, and you will meet them shortly. They have been working very hard to identify projects and sort of move things forward. There's also been a town plan update. So for the past 18 months or so, your town is working on what are the town plan updates that are included, including a flood resiliency chapter, including a lot of visions and goals for your communities. So we're building on all of those things this evening. We're not putting them aside, but instead kind of looking forward together with those contexts in mind. And the goal for the evening tonight is to really come together as a community reflect back to the 2023 flooding, what went well, what worked well for your community, what didn't go so well, what things could maybe have some improvement. And then we're going to look towards what potential actions and ideas you have for the future to make Weston more resilient in all the different realms of resiliency. So again, this is going to be building on the work that has been done, but it's an opportunity to really open up the conversation and think creatively about what all of those actions could be. And not just focused on flood resiliency specifically, but maybe there's things around communication or connections within neighborhoods, or diverse road patterns and circulation. And so everything is on the table for this evening for ideas for action. There are also folks joining us remotely, so welcome to them. It's being live streamed through GNAT, I believe, or YouTube. And they are listening in on the conversation, but not able to participate verbally this evening. But there are ways to provide your input, as well as if you don't want to speak this evening, there will be a survey, a quick question survey on the flood resiliency website, on the Town of Weston's website, where you can put in your ideas for action. If you don't feel like speaking this evening, there are also paper copies out in the lobby that you can write down your ideas. And all of those and the verbal things shared today are going to be compiled and used with the Resiliency Committee as ways to think about future work and future actions that can be taken within Weston. So that is really what we're doing here today. And I want to say there are a few kind of guidelines for the conversation. The facilitators will be holding the mic. And they are just going to do that. So don't try to take it from them. They're going to hold it for you. And then speak for yourself. Say I statements or reflect back on your experiences from the 2023 floods. So really ground it in those experiences that you've had. And then listen really actively. If there are folks who are maybe not speaking up, give a little space for them to speak up and make sure that everyone has a space to come forward. And also I want to note that flooding impacts can have an emotional response to them. They are very challenging times to live through and to maybe rethink about and bring up tonight. And so want to just make sure that you all are taking care of yourselves. Take space as you need. We do have a list of mental health services and providers that are able to connect with folks that are needing extra support, as well as Nick, the VCRD staff member here, would be happy to go into the lobby with anyone who wants to speak and get some help connecting there to any mental health services that you may be needing in this time of reflection back to that period. So, with that grounding, are there any quick questions about what we're up to today? All right. So the first part, we're going to introduce the Flood Committee and what they have been working on for the past bit of time. And Jim, I believe, is going to take us away there.
That's what I believe too. Wow. Can you hear me as well as I can hear me? I'm Jim Linville, Vice Chair of the Weston Select Board and Chair of the Weston Flood Resilience Committee. Thank you for coming. I got some other thanks just quickly. Susanna Gellert, the Weston Theater Company, for hosting this thing, and James Roeder on the PA system, making me come out loud and clear. Al Bastigan at Layla's for the pizza. And to the Flood Resilience Committee for getting the word out and being cleanup at the end of tonight's event. And just in case you're wondering, I'm going to introduce those members right now so they can't weasel out of the cleanup. They've been chosen as representatives of many different organizations in town, which you will recognize. Jim Linville, I'm the chair. I'm the vice chair of the select board. Hold on. My wife is laughing at me. Jeff Brown, secretary, he's not here, but he's on the planning commission. Wayne Granquist, town moderator, chair of the Friends of Weston Community. Wayne, where the hell? Yeah, there you are. Dave Raymond, chair of the Western Community Association. Dave. Yeah. Susanna Gellert, we've already thanked her, executive artistic director of the theater company. Jen Probst. Jen, I haven't seen Jen, but I've seen just about everybody else. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Fred. Linda Sarnioki, Weston Memorial Library. She broke her arm because her daughter went skiing with her and took her out into the moguls and started to get all acting young. Deb Granquist, the Wilder Memorial Library and the Development Review Board. Will Freeman. Will, I thought I saw you. Where's Will? Don't see him. Joanne Prouty. I haven't seen Joanne. Ladies of the Green. And Lisa Ursha, Select Board and Western Rec. She's not here. Okay. So just quickly, the she is here. Boy, you are really good at being quiet when you want to be. So we were appointed, the Flood Resilience Committee was appointed by the Select Board in 2024 to guide them through all this recovery. It was mostly to help spend a municipal technical assistance grant. And the mission of the committee, I'm going to go instrumental in helping us get through this with Regional, getting through the project. So again, but you don't have to just talk about floods. You can talk about other stuff too.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you to the rest of the committee for being here as well and for inviting this process with the community. So again, to reiterate, there are no decisions being made this evening. There's not much information that we all are sharing out or the flood committee is sharing back to you. Like Jim said, that will come at the February meeting. It's really an opportunity to reflect on your experiences, generate ideas, and all of that will be funneled into the Flood Resiliency Committee's work moving forward. So the next bit of time here, we're going to have two mic runners. So Danny, she'll take this aisle, and then Kelly's going to take this aisle. But it's an opportunity for you all. We're going to start with assets, the positive pieces of thinking back to the flood in 2023. What went well? What was working well during that time? Maybe it was one instance, maybe it was a series of things. But think back to the 2023 flooding. And if you're ready to share, just raise your hand and we'll come to you. Okay, in the back there.
Road crew. Yes.
Road crew. See a lot of nodding heads. There's another one up in the top there, Danny.
Just from the aspect of the fire department.
Can you wait till the mic, just so folks online can hear as well? Thank you so much.
Okay, my apologies. From the aspect of the fire department, I would like to say that I was pleasantly surprised by the community support that we received from all different aspects, from providing sandwiches while we're mucking out the mud in the fire station to helping us down the road with paperwork. Lisa Ursha was instrumental in that. So yeah, it was wonderful to see how the community came in to support an organization which they may not really be a part of, but are a part of.
Great, thank you for that. Other things that went well.
My generator
Jim.
came on.
Wait, hold on, wait for that.
My generator came on.
So there were pockets of power in the community. There's one up there, Kelly.
Fortunately, there was no loss of life.
Yes. What things do you think helped make that happen?
I think people are more in tune with the internet and news media, and they knew what was happening. The timing was a little bit off, but I think a lot of people were ready for it.
Okay, there are a couple down here. Brent?
I would just say the speed of the response and the town's support of organizations and individuals. I remember in particular, Lisa Ursha calling me constantly to make sure that my staff was okay and I knew where they were going. Colonial House and Kim taking care of people. There was just such a network of communication and care.
In the white sweater here,
The fire department, I believe, was one instrumental in getting an elderly woman out and making sure that she didn't get stranded.
over here.
Yeah,
and
we
Danny.
were grateful for the young company at the theater helping us at the Playhouse. Without those young bodies, we probably would still be digging it out. So.
Volunteer help at the Playhouse, digging. Young bodies. Okay, blue up here.
I appreciated the state's website that told you what roads were open and what condition other ones were in, and it just was very helpful, so you weren't wasting time driving all over the place trying.
That was the 511.
I
Yes.
don't know what it was, but it was very helpful.
Yes.
Yeah. That's great for all the state roads. Was there a way of communicating with and Vermont Alerts also?
Yeah.
That's a great
Because
asset.
it's the local roads that whatever that was.
Okay, so through Vermont Alerts, the local roads were also being posted about what was open and what was closed. Great. Okay. One over here, Danny.
Volunteers from the community and from even out of state that came in to help us muck things out and clean up.
Great volunteer response.
We had out-of-town volunteers.
Out of town volunteers. Other things that went well. There's one behind you.
The coordination between Neighborhood Connections and Weston volunteers to provide water, lunches, dehumidifiers, fans, things like that. They really formed this nice little 10-person unit. So it was coordination with Londonderry through Neighborhood Connections, but it enabled us to zap out food, zap out water, get people dehumidifiers in their basements very quickly.
Great. And was that something already in place, Neighborhood Connections, that got stood up?
The circle is new. Neighborhood Connections was already there, but the circle of volunteers.
Okay, the circle of volunteers was expanded for the response.
Yes.
Great. Other aspects?
I know FEMA's been getting a bad rap as of lately, but I must say I had probably 50 feet of my driveway wiped out with coming down, and they were just so great and responsive, and it was just clockwork, and they were really fantastic. They were there in a couple of days, and the reimbursement, the whole process. So I just have to say, you know, for me anyway, FEMA worked really well, and they were really a presence here. And local coordinator, I got to give a shout out to Lisa Ursha, who was just the center of so much of everything. And FEMA and everyone just really tireless working on it. So that was a key point as a communication and somebody right in the center that was just organized, communicating with everybody.
Kelly, right
So the secret is out. If you have my cell phone number, you can text me your contributions. So this is from Claire Stern, who's watching on the live stream, who says financial contributions that came in from all over the country. And then I'm going to add, since I have the microphone, and he's helping me to remember, our incredible representatives from the federal representatives to Kelly, everyone who really just came out to check in on us and see what they could do. Thank you, Kelly.
Danny, down here, there's two.
The New American Grill, feeding the entire town and others, should get a shout out.
Great. The New American Grill helps feed the.
I want to just piggyback on what Susanna said. I don't know exactly how long it was that Bernie Sanders and the other senator came and representatives came to our town. We got to meet them in person. I've never had an experience like that. And it was incredible. And Bernie said to all of us that they were going to make things happen fast. And things really did happen fast. The bridge got repaired amazingly quickly. I think everyone would agree. But I think there was a great response at the state level for us. And we didn't feel alone. And they didn't just blow into town for 20 minutes. You all stayed for hours and toured houses and all kinds of things. I thought that was pretty awesome.
Okay. Danny, there's one behind you in the blue.
I'd like to add the hub to the food. They were very generous with meals.
Great. All right, another minute or so here on the assets of what went well. All right, one down here, Kelly, or
We had a culvert near us blocked, and the river chose a new course and took outside of Mill Road. And we were so impressed that it was all put back together again in a few days. We expected it to be like this for, I don't know, days, maybe weeks. And within a few days, an excavator showed up, and a very skillful driver put the river back to where it should be.
great. Okay. Any other final thoughts? Okay, we're going to move on to the challenges. We know that, there's a lot that went well, we hear, but the opportunity to talk about some of the challenges that came up is really where things can improve going forward in the future. So, anyone have something to share around what maybe didn't go so well from the 2023 flood?
Well, there was a lot of information available for those who would actively go online and seek it. I noticed sitting up on my little dry island that there weren't a lot of push notifications or emergency alerts being broadcast to people, warning them of what was going on. So I think a little more proactive system in place that could push those warnings and alerts out to people. They might not be aware of the dangers they're facing. They're just not in tune with internet and other means.
So you can miss people with just the internet. Other challenges that maybe were identified, okay, in the back.
One of the things that we didn't know was that this is a new process with new people every single time this happens. So 2011, Irene, all those people, I won't say all of them, but most of those people were not the people that were boots on the ground for this one. So every time we are learning stuff that we didn't know we needed to know. So I would say, we need a better plan to access this information quickly. It was a scramble in that first week to even find out what we were supposed to do.
Again, from the aspect of the fire service, we suffered a devastating condition in the fire station itself. That's about where the town gets cut in half during these floods. It became extremely challenging for us to be able to respond to accountability incidents on the north end of town as well as covering the southern end of town. It took us days for us to assure ourselves that those in most need and in danger had been contacted or assured that they were okay. So it was a real challenge.
Thanks for identifying that. Other challenges that arose?
Kelly, one of the things that I continue to hope will be better in the next event, whatever it is whether you call them assisters or navigators, to help us poor untrained folks to navigate the incredibly complex maze of resources that we've probably never heard of, and don't know who to talk to, don't know how to talk to them, and that kind of help I think should be available next day. Find out who the community leaders are and who the people in need are, and make yourself available to help them. And we are darned lucky that we found Maggie Foley sitting over there clicking away like Madame Defarge on her computer. But yeah, that's.
Thanks. I heard the challenge there and your solution for it. It sounds like, but we're going to get into some of these action ideas, and I appreciate that thought. But really thinking about what fell short during the 2023 flood that you all want to reflect on. Yeah.
So we found it took us probably almost 6 weeks to be able to get one of these remediation companies to actually respond, to come in to do a cleanup. And thankfully, a compassionate adjuster warned us that they were going to come in and do services that FEMA flood insurance would not pay for. Otherwise, we would have been surprised by many thousands of dollars of cleanup that would not have been covered and wasn't necessary.
Okay. Thank you for that. There's one here in orange.
Oh, thank you. We had two very different experiences with FEMA as far as the home and our nonprofit business. With the home, within a week, and it wasn't very much, we got a check from FEMA. With the other one, they said we needed to take out a loan. They said, no problem, just come in, it's simple. Oh yeah. We spent months and kept getting letters back from the government saying that we were denied, but then just say apply again, you're denied, apply again. And it was just amazing. Ultimately, we gave up.
I think there should be some explanation of the difference between FEMA, which is federal, and we hope that FEMA exists at the next disaster, and also the state Office of Disaster Recovery, because that's Vermont State, and people didn't really know should we call our state, but we've been declared a disaster area. So how do those two agencies dovetail in helping the community? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, it's a great point. And any confusion or pieces of that nature are also welcome into this soup of challenges that we're going to then kind of talk about further with ideas. One down here.
Well, one thing that the Community Association learned is that even though you have a disaster like this, basically the first thing that you lose is power. So to start your cleanup, you need generators. Well, under what FEMA will pay, the generators are not covered. So we and the theater company had to spend over $100,000 just for the rental for the generators.
I'm not sure whether this is a challenge or a next step, but tell a quick story. Susanna and a bunch of fellow dog owners were walking our dogs in our field the day before this flood. And everybody said, gee, we're supposed to get some rain. And I said, no, it's only going to be 4 inches. Don't worry about it. Well, because 4 inches isn't that bad, but 8 inches is really bad. And that's what we got. And I'm probably out of order speaking for the fire department, but you guys didn't get a phone call. Somebody just happened to see that the water was rising. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah. So we need some kind of an early warning. Two things. We need an early warning system for, to measure the water level in the river. And then we need a good community-centric warning system where people get push notices on, either text or their phone lights up so that they know when it's going to happen. Because this was a complete surprise to everybody.
Yeah. You love jumping into ideas for action. I love it. We're going to get there. But it sounded like communications was the challenge there, and early warning and information from folks upstream or the state. Yeah.
My name's Denny Benson. I've lived here all my life. I went through the 73 flood, 76, 2 or 3 other high waters, Irene and this one. And right now I see not enough looking is being done. There's 2 spots in this town where flood control dams, one on federal land, the other on private, could take care of a huge share of this problem. But the other thing is there's a lot of lip service from FEMA and Corps of Engineers. There's a problem down on Boynton Road. I've pointed out to people from FEMA, Corps of Engineers, 2 or 3 times. People from Boston have come and looked at it and everything. And the answer I got, well, 2 or 3 more events and then the road will go. They could fix it now, save the cost, but they're not doing anything. But while you're looking at stuff, from what I've heard here, everything's right around the village here. I think a lot of looking has to be done to the tributaries. They are right full of brush, trees, gravel. They need to be removed. Just think what will happen in the next event if a bunch of these trees that are already in the brooks, and people who go hiking and walking must see them in Greendale area, Jenny Coolidge area, they build up a dam. And a bunch of water comes behind it. And then that dam lets go. What kind of tidal wave are you going to get down here? Regardless what you do in the village. If something like that happens, you're in big trouble.
So it sounds like, one of the challenges there is not looking at those tributaries and potential debris, dams, and other pieces causing catastrophic floods further downstream. And it sounds like you may have some ideas for actions too around beyond the village, what could happen and what may be needed.
Well, trees do a hell of a damage to the picture they got of the bridge down there. What's in the middle of the bridge? A tree. And then stuff gathers on them, then the water's got to go around. Regardless of what size the opening is, something starts to plug it, you're in trouble.
Yeah, so I also heard in there challenges with bridge sizes, and then the debris pieces. Other challenges that behind you in the gray.
Financial, money.
Money, financial. Other challenges that you're facing. Okay. It feels like folks are ready to pivot. We want to build, like I said, upon the work that's happening. The town plan is getting updated and is very close, I believe, to being adopted. Select Board is going through it now. So really, this next little bit of time here, we're going to reflect on the vision and goals that are set forth in that plan and see if there's additional ones that this group here feels could be needed for a more resilient Weston as well. So if you flip over your agenda, these are the visions and goals that are in the 2024 town plan. They were developed, I think collectively through a townwide survey, 2 community conversations, and this is the list as is. So we're going to do, hear me here, this works quite well. We're going to do a community read. So we'll need 7 volunteers and you're gonna read three bullet points at a time. So if you're willing to read, please raise your hand and we'll come around with the mic. So in the back, take 1 through 3 and read it out loud.
Number 1, to protect and preserve the rural nature, scenic quality, and sense of community of Weston. Number 2, to encourage, support, and maintain a community of residents and property owners with age, social, and economic diversity. Number 3, to address the town's changing needs through a continuous planning process involving input from members of the community.
Thank you. Another volunteer. Yeah.
To maintain the town's historic development pattern with a compact village center, tight, cohesive settlement patterns with outstripped development or sprawl within a rural setting surrounded by undeveloped areas. To assure that basic needs of health, safety, and education will be met and maintained at appropriate levels in accordance with the town plan. 6. To maintain the town's growth to be consistent with the town's ability to provide and pay for satisfactory educational, highway, fire protection, and other usual public services, and to discourage growth that will place an undue burden upon the town's taxpayers or otherwise leads to excessive increases in the tax rate.
To encourage and preserve the use of lands for agricultural and forestry purposes in order to keep these resources productive and to preserve the rural character of the historic landscape outside the village center. To encourage energy conservation and work to achieve a balance between the use of renewable energy sources and the aesthetic impacts of renewable energy facilities. And number 9, to assure that any project for increasing the capacity of any existing highway or developing any new highways will be consistent with the general character of the town and to require that, where possible, public utilities and transmission facilities share the use of corridors in order to minimize the impact on the environment and to assist desired development patterns.
Thank you. Another reader. Down here? No. Split the difference. All right, number 10 through 12.
To protect, number 10, to protect significant natural areas and locations of special educational, scenic, historical, architectural, and archaeological significance. Number 11, to encourage housing that is affordable and meets the needs of a population that includes retirees, families, young working people, long-term residents, and households with limited income. Number 12, to maintain and support a strong, sustainable, diverse economy that provides employment and ownership opportunities for town residents.
All right, one more. We need 3 more readers. Who else would like to read?
13, to preserve the character of the village center with mixed uses at a scale appropriate to the architecture and historic character of Weston. 14, to encourage the continuation of cultural, spiritual, artistic, and educational endeavors. And 15, to encourage the continuation of community spirit and service and to foster an atmosphere conducive to community endeavors.
16,
to assure the availability of safe and affordable childcare and early childhood education. 17, to foster a spirit of volunteerism that helps sustain and strengthen the community. 18, to protect the life, health, safety, and welfare of the community's residents, visitors, and businesses from flood hazards.
Thanks, one more. I'm okay with pauses.
To balance the property owner's rights to reasonably use their land in keeping with overall public health, safety, welfare, and goals in this plan. 20, to promote social, economic, cultural, and racial diversity. 21, to plan for and prioritize capital improvements consistent with the fiscal ability of the town.
Great, thank you. So those are a lot of goals, and I want to say first, congrats. They're very expansive from all types of topics. The question back to you all is there anything missing in general terms to create a resilient Weston for the future?
I think number 18 is missing the word property.
We're not going to wordsmith here this evening, but for 18.
Protecting our property from floods as well as.
Okay, the life, health, safety, welfare of the community's residents, visitors, businesses, properties.
Well, life, health, safety, welfare, and property of our community's residents, so that we're actually doing things to protect our homes.
Okay. And actually, I will say too that in the flood resiliency chapter, there is a goal here. It doesn't quite get to the specifics of property. I'll read it out loud. It says, strengthen flood resiliency by anticipating, preparing for, responding to, and recovering from flood events with minimum impact to the well-being of the community, local economy, and environment. So that's in addition on the flood resiliency chapter. Are there other pieces to really think of what the future of Weston looks like? Are there pieces that are missing? What else is there? Or it may cover it. This is a quite comprehensive list, but if you think there's something missing, please raise your hand and we'll share it today.
I don't know if I would say that this is missing or just a question I have that doesn't need to be answered now, but number 4, to maintain the town's historic development pattern with a compact village center, rural setting, surrounded by underdeveloped areas. I'm just not sure what that historic development pattern means, refers to, by which I mean, there was a time when the downtown of Weston was full of factories. What do we mean when we talk about the history of the town in the context of a forward-looking plan? That's all. So it's a question that doesn't necessarily have or need to be answered, but it's a point of confusion, I suppose.
Great. Questions are very welcome as well, because I think it gets at, well, what do we mean by the future and the future that we want to see together? Other thoughts? You want to dive into actions? I know, I can tell by the crowd, you're just really ready.
This is sort of jumping back to a previous topic, but I remembered that during the actual flood process, Lisa Yersha contacted me, and I'm a community nurse, and we put together a quiet, confidential, but very targeted list of vulnerable people in our community so that help could get to them if it needed to right away. And I think that going forward, I'm going to keep that in my mind and keep Lisa on my phone so that if something happens, which we all know it will, that kind of list can come up like I already have one. And let's check on these people. So I think that's something that needed to be stated, and we didn't specifically state it earlier. Thank you.
Great, thanks for bringing that up, and maybe back to the other point of, in 10 years, is everyone different in the flood response, and how will they know where that list is and who holds that? So that would be another question for the future. Yeah, here in the start.
So I know that the plan is very broad, but from my perspective, we still have buildings in this town that are not working because of the flood. And we really don't have a specific plan of how we're gonna get them up and running, specifically the Weston Playhouse. It's being worked on constantly, but we're finding out all the time that it needs more and more and more work and a bigger, broader plan for that building. And the fire station needs to move. They got flooded out, at how many feet was that?
5.5 feet was last one.
5.5 feet. So there are still things going on here that are not specifically addressed in this plan, but I think need to be, because if we don't, we can't maintain a town that we really isn't actually working yet.
It's a great point, and I think we'll build on that in this next section of thinking about what are those needs to make it a functional community and to attain these goals. So yes, really these goals are those aspirational guiding star where you want to go with each of these individual actions. So as you think about an individual action, how does it fall into the broader context of the overall goals for the community? So that's really where we're trying to go big with the goals, and then we're going to get into these ideas.
I would suggest that the select board is easily overwhelmed with all it has to do, and that my vision or goals would be additional professional help for the select board.
And I can also see that as a very discrete action that the community could take on looking at that. All right, so I'm feeling you're ready to build upon that. Let's go into ideas for actions. I'm gonna let Kelly take on this part of the agenda.
I don't know if that was really necessary.
That was just one. So.
Oh, okay. Microphone one. So you have all already started creating a list of actions that you would like to see based on the last two portions of this gathering. But let's see if we can dig in a little bit deeper and come up with a few more action items. We're not going to take anything off the table. Any idea is welcome. And as your Flood Resilience Committee continues to move forward with their work, these are things that they will be able to look at to generate some ideas for what kind of work they want to be able to move forward. And I'll also just jump in a little bit ahead of something on the agenda and mention that Mark and I and the FEMA Community Assistance Team are here and ready and available to help the Flood Resilience Committee and the Select Board work on a plan somehow or another, however it feels helpful. And so part of the reason we're here tonight is to be able to hear all of this so that we know what you as a community want. And so with that, do we want to try to capture the action items that were kind of already stated in the last couple of things?
Yeah, we can star them. I think the idea too is that they'll get pulled out of some of the other notes, but if there are any that come to mind, Mark, you can highlight.
I get paid by the hour, so.
So even though some of the action ideas were stated in the first one, they're in the notes and they will be included, but so building on them, I think.
So are there any other specific action items that anyone would like to see addressed?
So my name is Alyssa, and I am an emergency planner. Well, I'm a senior planner, but I deal with emergency management planning for the Wyndham Regional Commission. And as far as actions go, one thing I just want to remind you of is, and for the Flood Resilience Committee to kind of maybe take a look at, is that Weston has a hazard mitigation plan, and that is one of the fundamental things of that plan is identification of mitigation actions for your town to take and to reducing risk from all hazards, but in particularly, it generally focuses a lot on flooding. So that you developed with Matt Backler, my colleague, just a couple of years ago, really, so it's not even old. So take a look at the plan you already have and try and carry out some actions that have been already decided upon. As well, one thing that I know that Weston needs to do, and may be in the process of doing, is identifying an emergency management director, which you don't currently have as far as I'm aware of. You're actually the only town in the region without one. And that is a vulnerability, not to have someone that's kind of, I mean, it's automatically your select board chair. So that's just how it is in state statute. But it's good to have somebody who has volunteered to take on the position of directing things at a local level, to coordinating with the State Emergency Operations Center and with me at the Wyndham Regional Commission. And it's a fundamental role in the town that doesn't get a lot of respect sometimes, but they do a lot, and it takes a certain personality and skill set to really make a good EMD, they're called. So yeah, making sure that you're considering how that appointment goes. And then also, in relation to what you said about your vulnerable populations list, that's something that is a part of your local emergency management plan, which you also don't have. So putting together a local emergency management plan, LEMP they're called, is something that your EMD, your emergency management director, would typically lead. And you don't have one of those, either of those. So those are good, pivotal places to start. They also affect your, having the LEMP affects your state match above and beyond the FEMA match following your federal declaration. So currently you're going to get a lower match until you have that LEMP in place.
That's amazing, Alyssa. Thank you. I also.
I didn't get that at all.
Well, so Alyssa is saying that there are a couple of things in the end that we need. We need to use our hazard mitigation plan. We need to have an emergency management director, which we do not currently have, and we need to have an emergency management plan, which we don't currently have. So those are three very tactical things. The question, or the action, I think I would say, goes back to Wayne Granquist's earlier point, which is the select board needs additional help. We do not have those things, I believe, because we do not have the capacity to put them in place. And I don't know that, but that's my assumption.
If anybody wants to volunteer to be a emergency management director, my name's Jim Lenville. I'm sitting right down here in the corner. Come and see me.
I'm Denny Benson again, and I'm chairman of the select board. And one of the things I've been hinting around, and I would really love to do, is find a spot where the town could put up 2,500, 3,000 yards of gravel. Because during these incidents, everybody wants their road fixed yesterday. And there's no active gravel pit in town of Weston. There's a quarry on the Londonderry line. How much longer it's gonna run, I don't know. But after that, you're going to Chester, Ludlow, and further out to get materials to put your roads back together. And during these emergencies, every truck around is busy. They bring in trucks from New Hampshire, New York, all over the place. So if you had your own stockpile, it would cut down on trucking time and facilitate getting your roads back in place. But we do not have a piece of land any place where we could stockpile that kind of gravel for an emergency. That's just one of the things that would help get the town back in order in an emergency.
In action, whenever I talk with folks in Weston, one of the things that always comes up, and kind of Denny reminded me of it, is looking for a place to relocate your fire station to has always been that's in your local hazard mitigation plan. But I know the fire department, it's something they've never had as the land to actually put it somewhere else. So I think serious planning around that is something you would benefit from.
Anything else? there were a whole bunch of ideas flying around in the visioning. Oh,
I've got my own mic. It was talked about in the town meeting of 2024 this past spring about relocating the town garage as well, because that was access to that was cut off during the flood. So as well as relocating the fire department, which I know is important, but also relocating access to the town garage, which holds a lot of, necessary assets for the town.
oh, come on, there are more ideas out there. I can feel them. Fred has his hand up.
We have to give them cash?
2 points I'd like to speak to. One, Denny Benson spoke about before. Upstream flood control is, I don't hear enough about why considerations aren't made to do that. They say, if we remove the quintessential New England photograph of the dam at the mill or replace a bridge downstream, it'll fix the problem. We're not that far from the actual headwaters of the West River, which causes us the issues from all the small tributaries. But I believe that there is space to give serious consideration to constructing water catchment areas, flood control dams of some sort, streams that may become catchment areas, small lakes during a period of flood. And I'm also extremely worried about the water supply system for firefighting use within the town of Weston, and how the proposed changes of removal of dams and expanding the bridge in town will actually impact two of our most important water sources that we have in town. And we've heard ramblings about how if the dam is removed, that the water level behind the fire station where our primary water sources will be lowered by at least 18 inches. Well, that is a real conundrum for us because we have 3,000 gallons of water in our fire trucks. Every other time we need it, we have to get it from somebody's stream, pond, or swimming pool, or wherever it may be. And especially this time of year, that's critical to think about. If we don't maintain or improve our access to water for firefighting in emergency situations, then we're being short-sighted in what may be an opportunity for us here at this juncture.
That sounds like a priority. Sounds like a priority.
Put a star next to that one. Is that what yeah. There's a mic coming your way. I know.
This is another from the live stream, getting a marketplace back in town. We lost it, and it means that we have no central place to get anything other than going to Londonderry or Ludlow.
And it was also like our town kiosk. You learned everything there. Now it's Melvin at the post office. But
Community gathering space, maybe?
From Susanna's comment earlier about the properties that are still vacant, I'm curious if there's any action items related to properties that continue to be vacant, in addition to the idea of the market, anything specific to other ones.
Any thoughts on?
Kelly?
Yes.
I'll give you that again so I can.
Oh, well, here.
Well, I can type it, Jim. Sorry, I can type it, Mark. No, I was asking about the question of, someone noted that there were still vacant properties that are not functioning and not serving a purpose right now. And so when I do, replacing the marketplace, I was curious if there were other properties what the ideas were for other vacant properties.
Any thoughts?
Well, that's a really good question, because we still have the building between the Weston Playhouse and for Park Street, the brick house, Mark and Jeffrey's house, which is still empty and has been flood damaged, and I haven't heard word one about what happens with that property. It used to help house the theater people, residents for shows. There's a couple of houses across the street from the fire department that are flood damaged and they're empty. And I'm not sure what's going on with that, but I'd love to find out. And I'm sure that must all be part of fixing the water pathways and getting the fire department relocated. But a second point I want to make is that we have so many committees now in this town that I am confused, and I am on a couple of those committees, and almost all the time, even tonight, I'm hearing about plans and committees that I've never even heard of before, and I think we need to figure out, aggregate all this information so there's less confusion and there's one point of contact or a couple points of contact so that, you know, your average citizen like me, I'm trying to be involved, is not so confused.
And Lisa put her hand up.
Quickly, this isn't an action item, but I know Deb has asked the question, and so has 40 or 50 other people. There are properties that are vacant in Weston. Some are in the midst of a buyout program, which basically means they will be demolished and they will be turned back to green space. I think we have 3 right now that are actively in the process. They can drop out at any time if they want to. We have the Ulrich House, which is the one right on the corner across from Marketplace, who had considered it, but really wants to just move back into their house in Weston. Unfortunately, due to insurance, they're unable to. So that has nothing to do with us as a town. So that's speaking. And then I think you mentioned 4 Park Street. I think it's 8 Park Street. 8 Park Street is the property that she's speaking of that's vacant next to the brick house. The brick house is, there are people residing in the brick house. And I think that was my question. What was your question, Deb? The last part? The status. Of the committees. So everything reports back to the select board. So feel free to jump in a meeting. I can't tell you how many meetings we mentioned, the Resiliency Committee, the Planning Commission, the town plan. At every meeting, there is some comment or question made. So there are a lot of committees because we can't do it all. And so when we break up into smaller committees, that's to give other people a chance to do some of the work. So, but they all come back to the select board. So please feel free to reach out to any one of the select board members or watch a meeting, because all the information eventually ends up there.
We've heard a lot about suggestions of what to do and what not to do. And I would like to ask these different committees that when you come up with suggestions and solutions, you also come up with how are you going to pay for it?
I don't know if this would be a favorable idea, but the Rod and Gun Club has not been, I don't think it's in a floodplain. It hasn't sustained any flood damage, and I was just wondering, since the firehouse is so critically important, as is the gun club, but you could keep them both if you considered moving the fire trucks to the bottom level of the Rod and Gun Club and had the Rod and Gun Club's meeting area on top.
It's an action idea.
Well, sorry, I'm not supposed to do that. Yeah, to your question about the those 3 houses, the one opposite the firehouse, the one opposite the entrance to the theater here, and the red house just north of the firehouse. Those 3 are in the buyout program, and it's just going, they go slow. And they're going. So, but ultimately, if the thing works out and is successful and the property owners are happy with the price that FEMA offers, they're going to be torn down and turned into green space and turned over to the town. And so that's where they are.
In respect to the fire department's need for, to be relocated, we are actively looking for a piece of property. And since we do have a good gathering of folks here, we are looking to buy a piece of property. And we would be interested in talking with any homeowners or property owners about an off-market property that would be suitable. We're looking for something in the 3 to 5 acres. To combine it with the Rod and Gun Club, you know, that's putting us on one side of town. We still have a cutoff, you know, a town that gets cut off when it gets flooded. So if you do have property and you would like to help the fire department relocate, we'd be happy to talk to you. We do have a building committee. We meet on Thursdays. The fire department meets every Thursday. Or call the department and leave a number and we'll get back to you.
Jim, I'm curious if you're interested in me talking about the river project at all, since that is fundamentally group.
I think the plan was to talk about that more in depth at the February meeting.
Alyssa, I think it's on the agenda to present about rivers and D&K in February, so I think it'd be great.
I have mapping tonight, so the preliminary mapping is available, and they're looking for feedback. We're in the application process now, so it is important to get feedback sooner, instead of necessarily waiting.
We may have time at the end.
Yeah,
We're doing agenda, so
yeah, Resilience Committee, do we feel like we would like to hear an update on the Rivers Project now this evening? I don't want to hijack your meeting, so.
I think I'd be fine. Sure.
Okay.
If-
Alyssa.
Unless anybody has a problem with that. I
I
think
have
we
a
ought to.
problem. I just worry that we're in the listening session going to turn into a
Information.
report.
And I was thinking
Right.
maybe at the end, if we kind of wrap things up, if we have 15
Yeah.
minutes or so at the end, we can dive into
Sure.
those pieces.
As a part of the next steps? Sure.
It would have to be, well, whenever it happens, we gotta put a 5-minute time limit on it and make it quick executive summary, because otherwise we're gonna be off.
But everyone keep in mind that there is a meeting in February where there will be more information shared about a whole host of things. So this is not your last opportunity to hear about what's happening with flood resilience projects. Are there any other action items that?
I have a question. There's been an awful lot of talk about what to do going forward. And a lot of different things are being considered. And when I think about the firehouse, I think to myself, how much damage to the firehouse was caused by the dam slowing the river down upstream of it. And I wonder if the fire department would be just fine if there was no dam there. And I know this is a very hot topic. There are a lot of people who feel very emotionally connected to the beauty of the dam and the history, and maybe tonight is not the night to get into that, but the possible removal of the dam
has to be considered together with widening and making higher the bridge at the bottom of the green at Lawrenceville Road. So maybe that is all a topic for our next meeting, but that is huge in part of all that we're talking about tonight.
Yeah, it's really good to mention tonight and get on the list, but again, I believe that is front and center on the agenda for the February meeting. So,
So let's add it to the list, because we
Yep.
like to get a check mark, so we can
It
write
is-
for Bridge and Dam.
Mark is-
Next meeting we'll.
got it on the list.
Do we have a date in February?
February 24th, is that correct, committee?
I think this gentleman was here ready.
There was a comment earlier about the town garage being cut off during the flood and afterwards. And would it behoove us, would we be better off if the town garage, the fire department, and maybe Denny's suggestion of a big pile of gravel be in some industrial park altogether? And that would be our go-to place in the emergency. Or is putting them all in the same place, cutting off half of the town from response?
It's an excellent question.
Thank
There was another hand up. Oh,
Really a follow-up to my comment earlier about things that weren't working. We've got amber alerts, we've got silver alerts. Maybe we develop some sort of blue alert for the residents, not only for Weston, but for other flood-threatened communities that, they can push out warnings and notices and, even advice or, action to take. Just something that's a little more proactive to people that are out there.
great.
I'm not real sure where the town garage being cut off from where the town came from, but town garage was not cut off from Route 100. And Route 100 south to Londonderry was fine. North, there's a brief disruption on Route 100 by the bridge where the road was washed out, but that was soon fixed and Old County Road was passable. So I don't know where the information or rumor came that town garage was cut off. And town crew with others worked out there every day and they started with what they determined was the worst roads and took care of them first, then worked down a list.
Yeah.
I didn't get some of that, would you, can you?
Is there an action item in there, Denny, or was that just comment?
Clarification.
Clarification. I don't think there's an item for the list. Any other action items? Yep. Danny, we've got one down here.
I'd like to say too about the marketplace. The marketplace could be open, should be open. Lisa would probably agree with me. We were in a tax abatement meetings with him twice. He received significant funds to reopen. And last meeting we had, he promised he would be open before the snow flew. And it's still unopened, so.
I know clearing blockages came up under challenges, but I just want to make sure it comes up under, we get it to actions. And one very specific one is right by the bridge across by the rec center where the two rivers meet. There's a significant buildup of boulders and sediment that's creating a dam of sorts coming down the West River.
Thank you. You've got one behind you there, Danny.
A concern I have is that if the dam were to go and the bridge were to be larger, what would be the impact on, number one, where the library is located, and then further south, the southern part of the village, and then down there? Is there a potential for more flooding down in the southern part of the town if the water is moving through faster? That's number one. And then number two, in addition to the river, on the southern end of the village, we have a pretty serious problem of flooding with water that comes down Piper Hill Road. And then down Route 100, the culvert gets overwhelmed and we get flooding up there. Now, it's not hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage like you're getting in the northern end of the town, but it's at least tens of thousands, so there is a serious problem there.
So I believe that your first item is also the February 24th meeting. But the culvert getting attention marks capturing on the list.
This might have been done or being done, but are there what-if analysis being done for each of the dams there, not there, and what the flood impacts look like? With today's technology, this is capable to do that. And in addition to that, it can't be based on 100-year flood models because we know that's ridiculous in terms of higher impact type analysis. So you can see this in terms of almost a continuum. Does anyone know if that's being done?
Yes, and again, February 24th. Sounds like that's gonna be a well-attended meeting, which is very exciting.
So I have an action item, I think, for the committee that I sit on, which is I think we need to work through some timelines. I always remember that, I believe it was Brattleboro just completed their recovery from Irene right before the 23 flood. And I think it might help all of the town if we have a stronger sense of realistic timelines for both getting work done and also for analyzing and answering questions, etc. So timelines.
Good suggestion. How's everybody feeling? To ask everyone to stand up and move around a little bit, like get the blood flowing a little bit. I think in terms of time, yeah?
Can I ask?
Oh.
Can I put another question?
Of course.
I'm curious from residential property owners if there is different types of support or resources that you feel like would be helpful, that would have been helpful and that you can think of the development could be a good action item. Is there anything missing in terms of folks that had residential damage?
Any resources that residents would have liked to have seen after the flood as you were cleaning up and repairing? Wow, okay.
Any new alert system, I think I
Yeah.
Community dumpster.
Community dumpsters is what it said, just for folks online.
You've got one over there?
It would have been great to have access to like those sandbags that could go across the part of your driveway. Because my property, I live near Annie, I think she had to leave. But the water comes down the mountain and our road, Obed Moore, was pretty much taken out. But a lot of damage was done to the driveway, and if there was access to where we could get sandbags and things like that to help mitigate problems on our own property. I'm still having problems with that, and I've spent a lot of personal money fixing something that I'm not really sure I'm fixing it well, but that would be something that I think would be helpful.
Okay.
One other thing I heard, I have a question to the audience, is when you said the town gets divided, right? 100 gets flooded. Are there aspects to that could be improved? Are there things to get around that cutoff, the natural cutoff that happens?
It's only for like a day.
Did you hear that? No.
Road crew had it up and running, the town up and running in a matter of days. I found no problem whatsoever. I live on Lawrence Hill Road, and we couldn't get over the bridge, so we had to go down past the town garage, and the road was a little rough, but when I drove through there, not any problem, so.
Okay. Nice to hear good stories too. Danny?
One of the things that we faced in 23, which we didn't face so much or didn't know about in Irene was, we just went out and repaired the roads and did what we needed to be done. And we got noted for that. Well, come 23, FEMA kind of shut us down. They wanted to come in and take all their measurements, do all this. They were really slowing some of the recovery work down because they think they've got to do this and that, and lots of times FEMA was not a help.
It's on the list. Thank you, Denny. So I think in terms of time, we can probably move on to the next steps item. Do we want to pause and have give Alyssa a 5-minute high-level overview of rivers? Is that Resilience Committee and Select Board, is that an agreed upon okay thing? I'm not hearing no. Alyssa, do you want to come down? Wait, sorry.
I'm concerned that if we do, like, we start, it's all the questions that just came, sorry.
All the questions that just came up are going to be, we're not gonna have time to address all the questions that I think the Rivers Project is gonna bring into the room, and I think that's why we scheduled the February 24th meeting, so that we would have time to really dig into the study, the bridge, the dam, all of these questions that people were just talking about as we got to the actions, and I fear that with just not even half an hour, we're gonna be cutting it short.
Yeah, I agree.
Wayne.
I'm a member of the committee, and I think it would be a mistake to open up that subject right now.
Great. Okay, we're hearing consensus from the committee.
Okay, thank you, committee.
So I also want to, Lisa in the back.
Just one more action item, please. I'd like to know if we could get sort of a consensus on what other types of catastrophes or things, I mean, obviously we're all talking about flood today, but could we be talking about fires? Could we be talking about power outages? What happens if we have a broad power outage? So action item would be, I think we need some more communication and some needs or requests on needs for
Other types of disasters. Does anyone want to?
Yeah, and Matt, here are the other types that I can think of right offhand. The flood was 8 inches of rain or 7 inches of rain. How about 7 inches of freezing rain in the winter? What does that do? How about 7 inches worth of snow? You can do the conversion, 70 inches of snow. Not to mention fires. And yeah, I'm sure other people can think of other things. Oh, hurricane.
Any other disasters that anyone wants to get on the list? Tornado.
Wind events.
Yeah, high wind.
Well, and I think as you're thinking about those different, the other disasters, are there action items that could improve those? Like, think about the rain in the winter time. Is there a heating center? Is there places for people to shelter when their basements are flooded and their furnaces go out? So I think we can stay on action items for a while here, at least a few more minutes of people pulling out, thinking about if your power's out for a week in the winter. How would that? What would the needs be there?
Do you engage with Red Cross when you have that kind of incident here? I'm a new resident, so I'm learning as I go.
Well, I can answer the question for the flood in 23. The Red Cross showed up in the community at large, and they were stationed at Neighborhood Connections in Londonderry. Any other action items for the myriad of disasters that we all need to be planning for? Wayne?
I'll just say it loud.
Danny's on her way.
I think what we need to think about is cooperation among the towns. We've got to think about what Londonderry has as assets,
If we need an emergency shelter, is Floodbrook an emergency shelter, for example?
It is.
We use, exactly. So I mean, we need to broaden our view here in the event of disasters and think about other resources beyond Weston itself.
Excellent point.
For the various stakeholders in the community, would it be helpful to have a more regular sort of desktop exercises?
Preparedness exercises. Excellent suggestion. That's a good suggestion. And is that a Weston-specific exercise, or is that also a regional exercise?
I think start in Weston, and then I think that once we develop the model and we know we have a flow, I think then we start to branch out into other towns and see what the other towns are doing.
I might suggest adding the EMD, the Emergency Management Director item, to the list again. And gentlemen here might be interested, it sounds like. Oh, great.
Say it louder, Kelly, what do you say?
He said it's what he does for a living. I know. Yeah. I just, given the comments about having a tabletop exercise and the fact that having an EMD in town came up as in the previous conversation, we might as well get it on the list here too. Any other hands?
This as an action item, and maybe this is part of the EMD process or some of the different, as part of the EMD process or as part of some of the other discussions we had, is sharing plans, not just with our neighbors like Londonderry, but maybe with people like the gentleman over there, corporations, or just getting together to learn from each other and to not reinvent the wheel, but to use some of that information to help us create those plans and do things along those lines. And the other thing I would add is, I know it came up, but I know I would like to have had, and I don't know if they're about privacy rules and things like that, but it would have been helpful to have a list of people that I could call to make sure they were okay, or if we could, as neighbors, help each other with offering things, whether it's a place to stay, food, whatever it could be, just maybe a little bit more coordination around that and documentation around that, so we know about it.
Mutual aid. That's an excellent suggestion. All right. You have created an excellent list of action items. You have a lot to work with. So for the... Yes, lists are easy. Doing it is the hard bit, right?
Volunteering, get out there, do something.
There's an action.
Should we
Volunteer.
put volunteer on the action item list?
It just bothers me that everybody likes to have it, but it takes a little bit of work to get it done. Just being on the fire, our average age is, outrageous. I'm dead serious, 65 and plus.
Carrying the young guys in town.
I make the other part go down. The idea is, you may not think about it, but us old guys doing this stuff, carrying these hoses, which are not light, with equipment that is not light, in snow that's not real fun, you need to volunteer. Somebody's got to get out there besides somebody else. That's my little rant and rave for the day. Thank you.
Encourage new volunteers.
They lost the sign. The sign
Right.
went down the river.
Oh, the volunteers needed sign went down the river. Tragic. Yeah. All
right, well, so tonight isn't the only time to provide input, especially for folks online watching this. There will be a comment section on the Weston Flood Resiliency Committee website, on the Weston Town website. So you can put in additional ideas as they come up in there. And then, again, all of this is coming to the Flood Resiliency Committee to process, think through, develop a timeline, potentially, looking at these different projects, and specifically the two projects that are getting more attention currently are going to be discussed at the February 24th meeting. I believe it's also at 5:30 p.m. 5:30 p.m. It's on the bottom of your agenda there, so double check me on that. There are also paper forms in the lobby for folks who didn't speak up today, didn't want to share their voice into the verbal space. You can also write any suggestions down there as you're leaving and put them in the box. So those are other ways to share your thoughts. And now I'm going to hand it over to Jim or Maggie for a sort of timeline. So Jim, it's kind of next steps for the flood committee.
Oh boy. Yeah. When our next meeting is? No, not. We're meeting before that. The committee is.
Yes, we are meeting on Monday.
So we're meeting on Monday the 10th. Big thing that is facing us is going through all this stuff. Are you going to do the red dot deal here? No. Okay.
Would you like to do the red dot deal at the February 24th meeting?
No.
No?
Because we, the committee, were going to have to organize this stuff and sort of prioritize it and try to deal with it. So that's the main next step, is our February 10th meeting. And I can't think of anything else. The February 24th meeting, obviously, Alyssa and the folks from D&K and the Rivers Project are going to present the results of their studies. Those, you all ought to be here. The preliminary stuff I've seen is fascinating. They've got some great visuals about what the remediation efforts, basically the dam and the bridge, what they do. Peter, I think you queried whether any of these things would increase flooding below, and everything I've heard, and I've heard that concern from other property owners downstream of the village, and the water, we're not changing the amount of water, we're just mostly getting rid of it sooner so that it results in less flooding upstream. But I'm sure we'll have some more solid data on that. And this has been fantastic, and thank you all for coming.
We're going to hear from Kelly.
Mark, do you want to?
I was going to hide.
No. You should not hide.
Okay, so from this point forward, Kelly and I will be your meeting facilitators. Laura's going to step back, Kelly and I will step forward, and we'll do these things. But we also, for some time, we're going to have Maggie. Maggie helping us out. For a second there, I thought I had a brain fart, and I didn't. So Maggie will continue for a while, as long as she can, under the, yes, sir.
Put the mic a little closer to your mouth, please.
All right.
Us deaf people have problems.
They tell me 2 inches is about right.
Now it is.
Okay, all right, thank you. Do I need to repeat anything?
No, that's fine.
Okay, all right. I think that was everything I wanted to say. Kelly, is there something you want to add?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that you and I are going to help Weston in whatever way Weston thinks is the most helpful. And I have said this to the Resilience Committee and to the Select Board, that as a community, Weston has really done a lot of work on its, under its own power, on its own steam, and moved a lot of things down the field. And I think you all as a community should be really proud of your local leaders for taking it upon themselves to have a study done, to do the work, to have a plan. Not that there isn't more planning to do, and not that it isn't going to take a long time, but as a community, Weston really, you picked it up and you moved it. So congratulations.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Well, so with that wrap up, I think they're talking sort of next steps when you all can come together again and hear more of that information. But really just, again, want to thank you for coming out tonight. There are those other ways to be in touch with the Flood Committee. And if there's pizza, feel free to take some of that for the road. Feel free to connect and continue the conversation in the lobby or in here as well, more informally. But just, again, thanks for coming out. Question or comment in the back?
When you're done, I just want one last.
Okay. Well, that wraps up this evening ahead of schedule. We always want to end on time and even a bit above if possible. So thank you all for coming out. And one comment from that.
Hi, I'm on the select board and also on the resiliency committee. And since I've never seen
Bring the mic a little closer.
this many people together unless it's town meeting. So even though we don't have an official EMD or an EMD assistant, we do have a plan. And I've been taking really good notes since July 2023. So if you have a question about food or housing or where your pets can go or how to get from A to B, call the town office. There is somebody there with the select board, with the committees, who can guide you in the right department. Also, the fire department and the select board are really good about communicating with each other. So don't feel like you can't call the town clerk's office for any information. There shouldn't be anybody who's in need of something.
Great, thank you for holding the community together and again for coming out this evening. So have a good night.